Hi, this is Matt Donegan on Business Spotlight. I'm here with Craig. Craig, tell me something about you. Tell me something about your company.
Hi, my name is Craig Bell. I'm the Chief Executive of a company called Bell Group, and we deliver property services all around the UK from 37 different offices. We have an office in Northern Ireland and an office over in the US. We employ about 2,500 tradesmen around the country, delivering different work to properties in the main residential properties and a lot of work in social housing.
Wow. Okay. So, how many tradesmen in the UK?
About 2,500, just short of 2,500.
2,500. That's phenomenal. How do you deal with that many tradesmen? I mean, I think a lot of the people watching this video right now will be thinking it's hard enough to do it on a one-to-one basis. But you've been running the business for how long now?
I've been working in the business 26 years. I've been chief executive for 8 years. And you're 100% right. Running that volume of people who work for us is the biggest challenge we have, both in respect of controls and quality and consistency, but also we're massively culturally led business, and trying to disseminate a culture to a workforce that's spread through every single mile of the UK with that many people is incredibly difficult, actually.
Wow. Okay. So let me talk about your customer base first, and then we'll come on to the culture piece because I think the culture piece is really important in every business,
Yeah.
and I suspect it's critical in yours. So who's your nailed on customer? Because if you're employing that many people, this isn't just a local trade service. This is fairly big.
No, we don't really do anything direct to consumer. We do have a small business that deal with that called Pay My Home, but our main business deliver fairly large scale contracts. Our largest contract last year was 21 million, and that was in the defence space. Our smallest contract last year was £250. So we do have this huge spectrum. But that said, we've got about 20 customers make up about 40% of our business, and the majority of those are large landlords that you would know, companies like the Riverside Group, Home Group, Places for People, organisations like that. We then do a lot of work again in spaces like healthcare, education, and as I said, the Ministry of Defence is also quite a big customer of ours as well.
Okay. And am I right in saying it's more maintenance than new build?
It's 100% maintenance. We don't work in the new build space other than a couple of smaller offices that we have.
Right. Okay. And so 2,500 in the UK, you've got offices opening up in the US.
Yeah.
This is quite a challenging time for the construction industry. What's driving your growth?
Well, firstly, this isn't me correcting you, but we don't class ourselves as construction. And one of the reasons that is very much a conscious decision, that we don't want our staff and our team to feel like a construction business. Construction is quite dog eat dog. It's quite a ruthless space. There's certain behaviours in construction that we just don't accept and don't want in our business, and that's why we deliberately stay away from referring to ourselves as being in the construction space. That said, when you get a drop down menu, it's normally construction that I have to select. But we deliberately talk about being a property services business because the work that we do and the work that we deliver really spans most trades that you would deliver probably in your own home, despite the fact that we don't deliver it in our own in individual houses. That said, the growth and what drives the growth, which is your question, is really a lot around compliance and driving certain standards which are driven through central government. So a lot of the social housing work, for example, we do is because the government sets a standard for social housing, and then those landlords are expected to maintain that standard.
Yeah.
In the healthcare space, a lot of the work we do is a direct result of audits that are carried out. So perhaps audits are done on a ward, it's seen as not up to a certain standard, therefore there has to be a level of refurbishment done to bring that up to an acceptable standard to still operate. So a lot of the work that we do falls into almost compliance, you would say. We also, again, a big chunk of our business is in fire remedial work. That fire remedial work has all come from what happened at Grenfell. So since that's happened, again, a lot of that money is ring fenced and required to achieve compliance and to achieve certain levels that have been set by central government. So the growth and development of the business really comes from us recognising what's next on the government agenda and making sure we follow that through.
Okay, so there's a systematic approach to what you're doing based on strong fundamentals of delivering good services at a very high standard.
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at the nature of the trades we deliver, while the compliance might change and the stipulations from the government might change, it's ultimately the same trades that are perhaps packaged up in a slightly different way or delivering a slightly different service, ultimately to take those properties, be that houses or buildings, to a certain standard.
So let's talk about trades in a minute, because I think it's a really interesting part of what's happening in the property industry. But I want to touch on the culture first. So you said that you're a culture-driven company.
Yeah.
How does that manifest?
Well, if I could, the perfect example to use would be health and safety. We had a new director of health and safety join the business last year, and when he joined the business at first, the conversation that we had was around the behaviour of our site teams. If we tried to manage health and safety by breathing down people's necks and hitting them with a stick every time they did something wrong, it would be incredibly difficult, because our teams are so widespread across such a massive geographical area that it's physically impossible to be watching every single tradesman every single second of the day. If we, which this has always been our approach, if we drive a positive behaviours through the culture of the business, then we drive safe behaviour and safe performance, and we minimise the amount of health and safety incidents we have. So culture can be everything for us from how someone goes about their daily duties through to their mentality towards their work. And one of the things we talk about a lot, my dad started our business, and one of the things that he used to say to me when I was younger, when we would go around, he would say, "Oh, we worked on that building, or we painted that building, or we did this." And it was because he was proud of it. So he wanted to show us, his children, what he had done, and was proud to show us that it had been delivered to a certain standard. So we've tried to adopt that mentality with our tradespeople. And what we'll talk about is, for example, if you're fixing the boiler in someone's house, you're not fixing a boiler. What you're doing is providing heating and hot water to that family.
Yeah.
Or if you're painting the windows in the outside of a building, you're not colouring them in. You're not trying to make them look pretty. What you're doing is protecting that building and making it wind and watertight. So really trying to focus on understanding the why, and kind of really focusing on making sure that come the end of that task, whatever that task might be, that you've made sure that you've achieved that why, rather than just simply delivered something that's the bare minimum. And that's really the thought process behind it.
So it's not just about ticking boxes, it's about thinking about what the underlying principle behind the whole thing is.
Yeah, the complete opposite. And from our point of view, that culture spans from everything we do, from recruitment of apprentices that we develop through the business, right through to how we speak to the end user, the building user. And again, a great example of that would be people maybe living in a house aren't our customer, because our customer might be the landlord, but making sure that we treat that person that lives in the property with respect, and in effect treat them as though they are the person that's paying the bill, despite the fact that they're not.
Yeah. Okay. Understand that. So when I talk to you about when I ask you about trades,
Yeah.
So there's been a certain amount of volatility in property construction trades in the last few years, perhaps since Brexit. There's been a reduction in talent and workforce. What do you see as being essential in moving moving the industry forward? How are trades going to respond? What's the upward? What's the uptick in trades? What's it going to be?
There's two sides to it. So I can address that as two separate points. One, we've always believed in developing our own people. We're actually an accredited college now, so we provide our own apprentices with bail provision. And the reason we do that is because we felt that a lot of, that said, some of the colleges deliver a tremendous job, but what we felt was that some of the colleges, some of the provision around the country wasn't up to scratch, and it wasn't where we wanted it to be, needed it to be. We got to a point where we decided we wanted to implement our own training programme, which we've done in Scotland initially, and the plan over the next 2 years is to open another 3 of those colleges throughout the UK to deliver a lot of our own apprenticeships. I think that there's not enough companies that still deliver that deliver apprenticeships. There's far too many companies that are really reliant on either a subcontract model, self-employed delivery model, which I just think is the worst, or recruitment from the outside world. And if you're recruiting from other businesses all the time, for me, you just don't have your own identity. When one of the big things that we try to deliver through our college programme is we're trying to teach the learners more than just the mechanism of delivering whatever trade it is they're doing. We're trying to teach them about what it means to be a good member of staff, what it means to be a good work colleague, talk about things like well-being, and recognise how to work with their colleagues to make everyone's job and day-to-day life and living significantly better. So I think that the first part of the question very much is based around more companies have to take on apprentices. I think it's as simple as that. As a nation, we need to adopt the idea that apprenticeships and trades are actually really, really good jobs. I say to everybody that joins our apprenticeship scheme, it's something you will have for life. If you decide you want to move to Australia in 20 years' time, you can do that, and you still have that trade behind you. You'll be able to go and do that, or America or anywhere else. Do whatever you want. If you want to go and start your own business and it all goes horribly wrong, well, on the Monday afterwards, you've got that trade you can fall back on. So I think training people into trades is massive, and I think really needs to move forward. But then we have to look at what the existing trades look like and how we create workplaces of the future and workplaces that people want to work in. I had an experience about 8 or 9 years ago now, where I was on one of our sites and I was actually bursting for the toilet, and I wouldn't use the welfare facilities that we had on the site. And it really made me think to myself, well, if I'm not willing to use them, why should I expect our tradespeople to use them? And it really, really resonated with me. It was just a real light bulb moment where I realized that actually, if we want to attract good quality people and we want to retain good quality people, we have to treat them better. We have to create better working environments. And that goes from welfare facilities. And I think that's a huge one in terms of diversity. If we want to attract women into the industry, we have to create better working environments and better welfare environments. So I think that we have to look at the environment people are working. We have to look at their safety. We have to make sure that they're sent home safely. But then we have to look at what the journey looks like for their careers. Because if you have someone that comes in and you say, okay, you are now a plasterer, people want to know where they're going to go next. They want to know where they're going to develop to. So if you're just saying you're a plasterer and there's no future trajectory for you, a lot of people through time will get fed up with that and start going and looking for other jobs and different things to do. And I read an article a few months back saying that they reckon that people are joining the workforce now will have somewhere between 3 and 7 different careers over the span of their working life. So they were kind of saying about 5 on average most people would have, which to me, if you have to go into 5 different careers over the course of your career, that to me means you've not found something that you've really got a passion for. So if we can create jobs, whatever level those jobs are at, but jobs that people can be really proud of, that they turn up every morning and they think, I'm achieving something here. And I think if we look at the decarbonisation agenda as a perfect example of that, where we can have a lot of our tradespeople that are currently delivering maybe jobs that aren't as well paid, if we can upskill those people, which it's not a huge job to upskill the people because the trades aren't dissimilar, but we can upskill them to be able to deliver projects that are higher paid, cleaner jobs with really, really good prospects for the future and longevity to them. I think that we're going to firstly manage to retain a lot of our tradespeople, a lot more than we currently do. Well, it'll help with things like mental health. It'll help with pride. It'll help with a sense of achievement. And above all, it'll help attract a higher caliber of person into our industry, because I think there definitely has been over a number of years, a lot of trades have become less sexy. People don't want to do it. And actually, the fabulous jobs, and not only the fabulous jobs as they are, we can make them better.
Yeah. So what, in effect, what you're saying there is provide people with a good basis of in a career where they're picking up, they're developing skills in something that is future facing, and
Yeah,
treat them well, and they'll stay. It
100%.
kind of sounds like really basic common sense, doesn't it?
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the taglines I use in our business all the time is, "It's not brain surgery what we're doing, just keep it simple." And I say that to people all the time, because it's not. And if you get the basics right, normally everything else follows and success follows. And I usually find, if we've got some of our offices that are more successful than others, obviously, as you get in any business, if you look at the more successful offices, they tend to be the ones that simplify things.
Yeah.
The ones that fail when you go in, they tend to be the ones that don't follow the processes and systems that you've laid out for them. They've tried to come up with something that's far, far more complicated, and ultimately it's fallen apart and failed.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, it makes a lot of sense now you put it like that. One of the things you touched on just now, and it was part of the culture. We were talking about culture and about your father being proud of the things that he'd done and showing you when you were kids.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Ooh. Um, it's an interesting question, because I think that there's different elements, probably through my life and through my career, that I'm proud of. I'm very guilty of looking outwards rather than looking inwards. And by that, what I mean is, when people talk about the success, or when people ask me about the success of our business, I say I've got 9 direct reports and they're all superstars. So my focal point will always be on everyone else and what everyone else is doing well. But I do have my own internal goals, and I have my own uh, elements that I've achieved, and some of those, I'm dyslexic, actually, and I was told when I was at school that I would never make anything of my life. And I also have a very intelligent sister who I work with, who I'm extremely proud of, but she was much more academic than I was. So for me to have got to a level where I feel on a level with my sister, to have got to a level where I feel that a sense of achievement against what I was told by my lovely school teachers, those are things that are a great sense of achievement to me. But I actually, I'll tell you a very brief story that really filled me with an intense sense of achievement. I was sitting in a meeting in a Birmingham office about 4 or 5 years ago now, and there was 18 people in the room. And I actually wasn't scheduled to be in this training session that was there. I was there for another meeting, and our head of HR, who was holding this meeting, said to me, "Oh, would you mind popping in and just doing a little bit of an intro for the training session?" I said, "No, I'd love to. It's great." I said, "I'll tell you what, I've got a spare hour. I'll sit in for an hour, and then I need to go because I've got a meeting." So we sat in, and she'd started the meeting by asking everybody, because the people had come from 4 or 5 different offices. She said, "I'm going to ask everybody to say your name, what you do within the business, kind of where you've come from, and something interesting about yourself." And so she went around the table, and I happened to be the last person, just because of the direction that she went around the table. And there was 17 other people. I remember that. She went around every single one of them, and every single person in the room, when they announced what they did, they were all in contracts type positions. Every single person had been promoted to that position within Bell Group, and that was just by chance. There was no that wasn't by design. So everybody would say, "Oh, I'm an operations manager. I joined the business as a tradesperson. I became a contracts manager, and I was promoted to being an operations manager last year," or something to that effect. It came, and then they would say something interesting about themselves, and it got round to me, and I said, "The thing that's interesting, and that I'm most proud about myself, is that I'm sitting here in a room with 17 individuals who come across incredibly well. They all spoke passionately about themselves, and the fact that I run a business that's created the opportunity for each and every one of you to develop and progress through your business is something that I'm incredibly proud of."
Oh, that is fantastic. I love that. Genuinely, I absolutely love that. When you take pride out of developing people, that's
Yeah,
nurturing. And,
yeah.
having a strong culture in a business, which is fundamental to any successful business, is nurturing your people is the first and foremost duty that you have. That's brilliant. I love that. Really, really good.
I do always find, though, Matt, there's a huge amount of people want to talk about culture, And I think there's a difference between the people who talk about it and the people who actually live and breathe it.
Yeah. Yeah, the culture workshops that we work with on some businesses don't even realize they've got a culture. But it's true. But a company will always have a culture, whether you know it or not. So you better foster a good one because it's going to impact the success of the business. It's just fundamental. So, okay, look, one last question for you before we finish the interview. And what piece of advice would you give if you were starting out in business now? If you're a young person, maybe coming through the trades, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe as a young entrepreneur in the property industry, what would you say to that person?
Well, I actually am asked this. When I say asked this, I don't mean in interviews. I'm asked this question regularly by people on a daily basis about whether they should start their own business, how they could start their own business. And we actually really encourage it. We encourage our staff to do that because we want the best for our people. And if they are entrepreneurial in any way, we've tried to support that and see how we can assist with it. I've always given friends of mine this advice as well. I've always said, if you're going to start a business, there's two types of business to start. Either start something that's incredibly niche, that it's there's no one else doing it in the market, or do something that you are really good at and that you understand. The number of people that I've heard over the years trying to start businesses that they don't really have the skill set to deliver, and I think they almost always fail. And the one, I'm sure you've come across this many times, but everyone seems to think they can run a restaurant. So the number of people that will open a restaurant and they've never worked in a restaurant, they've never worked in a kitchen, they don't understand the complexities of it. In every single business, it doesn't matter. I've got lots of friends that own different types of businesses. And one of the things I've discovered over the years is it doesn't matter how easy it looks on the outside, every business has its challenges. They all do. And if you don't understand that industry and you don't understand the challenges that come with it, when you're trying to run that business, firstly, no one's going to respect you because you don't really understand it, don't really know what you're doing. And secondly, when those challenges come along to your business, your chance of being able to overcome them is probably next to nothing.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. It's very true. I think when you couple that with actually learning about the principles of business, you could be the best chef in the world. Doesn't mean that you know how to run a restaurant or a
You know,
business.
it absolutely doesn't. But I've always said, when you're a small business, you have to be willing to roll your sleeves up and do all the roles. You have to be willing to do everything. So if you can, if you wanted to start a painting and decorating business tomorrow, but you don't know how to paint or decorate, how are you supposed to be able to A, manage those people, and B, when the chips are down and you've got a client that's unhappy in a project that needs handed over tomorrow, and where I would say, give me a role and I'll help, the person that's running that business, if they don't have that background and experience, they aren't able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really good. Just trying to think of any little gems I can ask you at this stage. I get a feeling actually that in terms of discussions, I'd like to have a lot more discussions with you because it sounds like we're pretty much aligned in our thinking. So I'll just ask you one more question, and that is, what is the single biggest lesson that you've learned? So you've given me the advice, you've told me what makes you proud. What's the single biggest lesson that you've learned in your journey of running a business?
It's really simple. It's really, honestly, as soon as you ask me the question, there's one major thing that stands out to me. And I say this to our staff all the time. When the chips are down and when things are really important, you have to be there yourself. You have to be there yourself. You have to see it. You have to see it with your own eyes. So, for example, if I've got a project that's a really important client and something's gone wrong, because things go wrong all the time. The nature of what we do, there's always projects that aren't going properly, people that haven't behaved the correct way on site. If you just sit in your office and wait for somebody to call you and say, that's fixed now, and then assume that that's going to be okay, you will end up coming unstuck massively. If you've got a problem contract and it's an important client and you want to make sure that that's been completed properly, get out your office and get out and see it yourself and make sure that it's fixed properly. Yeah. So being visible, being there, being in the moment, and making sure that when you're going to say something that you can put your word behind it is everything.
Be present. Be present in that moment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And that, I guess that also transfers to be present with your marketing teams, be present with your finance teams. It's
Doesn't
about
matter
paying
where it is.
attention to the stuff that
Yeah,
matters, right? Yeah,
yeah, anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. But the
It's
perfect
funny.
answer, I think, Craig.
It's funny you say that about the different teams, because one of the analogies my dad used to always use, he used to always say, running a business is like spinning plates. You know, you get the guys that spin the plates, and what you always have to do is look for the plate that's wobbling, and that's the one you need to be present in.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah, it's very true. It's a simple analogy, but it works. It really does.
Absolutely.
And any business going through growth will experience pains in a particular area at any one time. You just need to deal with that particular pain before you move on to the next one. Listen, it's been a real pleasure, Craig. I know we're going to continue our discussions because I think there's just too much for you and I to talk about. So look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated your investing time and speaking to me today. The Bell Group's flying. It's absolutely fantastic. I can see you growing it even further, and with a smile on your face, which is fantastic. So thank you very much, Craig. Let's keep in contact, and I wish you well.
Thanks for having me, Matt. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks.